That's the good shit.
Chilling out with the crew in the schoolyard, finding trouble, never looking too hard.
Get your game on. Don't mind if I do, Frankie.
Hey.
Anyone who grew up in the early 2000s was probably aware of Bionicle. They were pretty different to other LEGO products at the time, a sort of mix between conventional LEGO and action figures. Uniquely for LEGO, Bionicle had an in-depth backstory, outsourced to professional writers. The lore was surprisingly compelling, and I owned a decent number of sets over the years. Of course, an IP with any meagre sparkle of originality that hasn't been milk dried is about as common an occurrence as a white Christmas on the surface of the fucking sun. With 4 terrible movies, several comics and graphic novels, and even 2 attempted TCGs, the Bionicle license is about as reputable as Bill Cosby at this point.
I knew something was wrong.
There were 6 Bionicle games in total, all either on Game Boy Advance or Generation 6 consoles. I can't speak from experience about the first 5, although from some gameplay footage I managed to dig up, I doubt they'll be winning any VGAs anytime soon. Ain't that right, Jeff?
Hideo Kojima is not here with us.
The only Bionicle game I ever owned happened to be the last one made to date. Bionicle Heroes, developed by Traveller's Tales and published by Eidos, released in November 2006 to a critical consensus of
That's nice.
I got this game on PS2 for my 8th birthday alongside the original LEGO Star Wars. You may be noticing a pattern here. I was pretty into LEGO at the time, to the extent that I actually owned 3 of the main sets featured in this game. That said, and without further ado, let's dive in and brutally critique this piece of children's entertainment. You masochist fucks. The game opens with a few splash arts, and then this. We're shown this nice animation of the Paraka, these jovial bastards, flexing like frat boys, curb stomping the Traveller's Tales logo and just having a jolly old chuckle about it. Following this comes a short intro cinematic. We see a canister surface off the coast of an island and head towards the shore. I love how distinctly unimpressive this entrance is. The series of figures that the game is based around, the Toa and Nika, don't have a canonical mode of transportation, so the animators literally just had them appear out of one of the canisters that they were sold in. That's so brilliantly lazy. It's like if Batman got around Gotham in plastic packaging. It's genius. After the canister lands, we're treated to an awkward, jerky POV sequence of the player character emerging out onto the beach. So we stumble up to this cowering Mataran dude. This little guy must be wearing the legendary mask of exposition, because he dumps the entire story on us in under a minute.
Are you... our savior?
Not that there is much of a story. Basically, the Paraka invade Voyanui, steal the Mask of Light and wreck shit up for the Matarans, so the Toa and Nika, i.e. your dumbass, have to defeat the Paraka, retrieve the Mask of Light, and systematically unwreck said shit. The voice acting in this cutscene is hammy as all hell, but passable, even if it is the only bit of human speech you're going to hear in the whole game. The animation is pretty decent for PS2, even if it does maintain that weird jerky quality. After getting into the game properly, you spawn in this temple place that acts as an overworld. It has a shop, a level select, gender neutral bathrooms, an IKEA, the whole shebang. In trying to get my bearings, I encountered the first of this game's major problems. Your character controls like a tank. As in, you could play World of Tanks from the interior of a fucking Panzer and still get a more authentically slow and cumbersome feel from this goddamn PS2 Bionicle game. In a competent third-person shooter, the left analog stick controls movement and the right analog stick controls the camera. In this particular game designed by fucking lobotomites, both sticks control the camera. The difference being that the left stick turns your character on the spot as well. This means instead of having free movement, you can only advance straight forward in whatever direction the camera is facing. Side strafing would appear to be a foreign concept to the inhabitants of Voyanui. They're too busy focusing on studs and how to rehash themselves for the 50th fucking time. Once I finished getting reaccustomed to the starting zone, I made my way down to the level select. I don't think I realised it as a kid, but this area contains all the telltale signs of a Traveller's Tales game. In contrast to the 3-zone 6-level format of the LEGO Star Wars games that came before it, Bionicle Heroes level select is made up of 6 zones with 3 levels each. Yeah, really savour that innovation. There's a zone for each of the 6 Paraka based on their respective elemental themes. So you get fire, water, earth, ice, jungle and stone. You'd think that stone would come under the domain of earth and that ice would be outsourced to the water guy, but that just wouldn't sell as many figures, would it? Vizoc's coastline is the first zone open, so let's check out its first level. After the level loads, and pretty quickly to be fair, we're shown a short cutscene of Vizoc screwing around with Gurok, one of the 6 Rakshi. While cheesy, these cutscenes manage to keep intact the usual TT charm of conveying genuine personality and humour without the use of any dialogue. Genuine personality and humour. genuine personality and humour. Unfortunately, whatever subtle magic these sequences had has been rigorously strung out of modern TT titles.
Hey, Harry! How many coffees have you had?
Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Did I have 6 shots or only 5?
At this point, I should probably give a brief rundown of the ensemble of plastic husks you'll be controlling. I won't go into their backstories because there's zero character development and let's be real, no one gives a shit. But I will go through their different gameplay aspects. Jaller has an SMG weapon, can walk on lava and can burn through plants. Hallie is basically a water-based reskin of Jaller with a beam weapon. Kongu has a shotgun, can jump around, and he can blow rocks or some shit. Mataro has a sniper with a zoom function and he can freeze things. He's also excruciatingly unplayably slow. Hookie.
God bless Hookie Street. Viva Hookie Street. Long live Hookie Street. Say magnifique Hookie Street. Magnifique Hookie Street.
This beige fuck has a rocket launcher and is literally pivotal to every level. He's the only Toho that can build or interact with anything, which makes absolutely zero sense. He can also break certain walls and has a fondness for gardening. Lastly, we have Nuperu, whose glorious weapon I like to refer to as the atomic middle finger. Just look at this nonsense. He can climb up walls and must have learned about finance from the Necronomicon, seeing as he can make currency fly out of disembodied limbs. So back to the first level. Almost immediately we're introduced to 2 different enemy types, the Borak and the Vizorak. While it might be slightly interesting to some that even the grunts are canonical, this is quickly overridden by the fact that they make up 2/3 of the enemies in the game. Along with the Voxy that you meet later in the level, these useless little shits are all that stands between you and any boss. Yes, there technically are 6 varieties of each of the 3, but they're just straight up reskins, and barely distinguishable considering how fast you'll mow them down. The gameplay itself doesn't do much to help the game's case. As I mentioned before, Bionicle Heroes models itself as a third-person shooter. That said, it is the third-person shooters what your smelly gran is to Julia Roberts in the 1990 romantic comedy classic Pretty Woman.
$50, Grandpa. For 75, the wife can watch.
The game is built around an auto-aim system denoted by a pair of unexplained green laser beams coming out of your character's eyes that seem to latch onto whatever enemy they feel like. You can try turning the camera to force your target to change, but because there's barely ever less than 2 enemies in your FOV while in combat, you just end up with your sights flickering back and forth as if you were trying to start a spontaneous rave. All of the standard enemies have the offensive capabilities of fucking Chia pets, resulting in the game being insultingly easy. I think I might have died once in my entire playthrough. Even then, there's barely any penalty. You just lose access to whatever character you were controlling at the time. This system can be easily cheated by switching to your worst Toa when you're at low health, which usually means old Ghostface Killer over here. Piss off, Mataro, no one likes you. While the weapon variety is decent, half of them are useless in the mostly close-range combat situations the game provides. Kongu's shotgun lords over everything, being lethal at close range and obscenely accurate at mid to long range. Jaller and Hallie are okay, and Nuperu can clear most rooms in 2 or 3 shots, but Huey Lewis and Raekwon the Chef are completely obsolete outside a couple of rare situations. The movement speeds are a mixed bag. Hookie, Mataro and Nuperu all move much too slow to avoid projectiles, or to get through the stage before you die of old age, while Jaller on the other hand moves too fast for the crappy controls. Hallie and Kongu are better, with Kongu being about perfect, begging the question why he doesn't just do all this shit himself and save himself the hassle of bringing his 5 dipshit buddies around with him. The whole game hinges on collecting Lego pieces, and I do mean the whole game. Killing stuff gets you pieces, fixing stuff gets you pieces, finding stuff for more motherfucking pieces. What's the purpose of all this, your magnificent brain might be asking you? Aside from being the currency at the store, collecting pieces fills up this gold bar at the top of the screen. When you fill the bar, you enter true hero mode, you know, because before I was just one of them fake heroes, and become the god of the fucking sun. In true hero mode, you become completely invulnerable. It's as if one of the devs was screwing around with cheats, and the game director, who only acquired his position through a series of backroom blowjobs, saw it and was like, yeah, that'll make it great and totally not busted central game mechanic. This makes the game insanely unbalanced, seeing as most areas contain enough Lego pieces to get you to true hero, allowing you to breeze through the stage and eliminating all possible challenge. On top of this, one short loop of what I'm going to term stock epic music is played over and over again while you're in this mode. I guess it's kind of apt the first time or two, but considering how often you're going to be in this mode if you grab every available piece like I did, it becomes grating very quickly. This is especially annoying when you realise that the rest of the music in the game is actually surprisingly good, fitting the scenarios nicely. In fact, the sweet background music you're hearing right now is taken directly from the game's soundtrack. The score is credited to Ian Livingston, which should be a seal of quality to anyone in the know. This fine gentleman has won multiple awards for sound editing and original compositions on titles such as Valiant Hearts and Starlancer. Basically, the dude knows his way around a solid tune. The point of achieving true hero mode is gaining the ability to interact with piles of golden Lego pieces. This generally unblocks your path to the next area by means of some quirky but heavily recycled animal things. Realistically, these things could be replaced by a big button marked carry on that you have to press every 10 minutes or so for all the flow and congruency they provide. They seem to exist solely to add some spectacle to break up the monotony of these aggressively linear levels. On the subject of level design, the visuals are probably the strongest aspect of the game. It's no Okami, but the levels are still nicely themed, without focusing too heavily on their elemental attribute. For example, I was pleasantly surprised to find an underground lake inside a volcano in one of the fire-based stages. Lego structures are unobtrusively integrated into the non-Lego landscapes in a way that builds a decent atmosphere. There's 5 gold and 5 silver canisters hidden around each level. Collecting them all gives some lore in the lower hut, or an enemy to look at in this prison place above the level select. Christ, are they keeping them in these little containment cells? Soviet gulags had better living conditions. Most levels have a reasonable amount of colour and visual variation, even if some focus too heavily on dull brown corridors. This is a shame, not only because it makes the stages dick-wrenchingly boring, but because the camera was programmed by a goddamn dementia-riddled sloth on heroin, and in tight spaces it's close to unbearable. Anyway, you beat the stage and reach the boss fight. We get another cute little animation of Gurok before we're launched into the action. And boy, is it shit. The boss fights are probably the most blatantly weak aspect of this game. You fight one of the 6 Rockshi at the end of the first level of each zone. These are basically all the same terrible fight in slightly different arenas. You kill mobs until you can use a pile of hero pieces, then shoot the boss when his shield goes down. Copy, paste, rinse, repeat, ad nauseum. At the end of every 3rd level you fight a Dark Hunter, one of these awesome looking guys. Oh, excuse me, guys and lady, seeing as Rudaka here is the only female in the game to my knowledge. You can tell by how she's fake. Regardless, the Dark Hunter fights are just more of the same, albeit with slightly quirkier arenas. Some don't even have you interact with the boss, so the whole boss fight, the keyword here being boss, involves killing basic enemies. Finally, there's the Paraka fights. You'd think they'd do something interesting and unique for the main antagonist, right? But oh, how wrong you would be. Same shit, interact with hero pieces, shoot when shields are down, just in a larger space with some more animations. The only thing that adds any gravitas to these fights is that after you defeat a Paraka, you get a short additional battle with these guys, Vivian and Fenrak. All these entail is avoiding some slow telegraphed attacks and then shooting Fenrak in his big dopey head. The final boss fight is also against Vivian and Fenrak. Spoilers, I guess. Oh wait, they're right there on the... Oh, who gives a fuck. As if I expected anything else, this is essentially just the same fight as before. Avoid attack, shoot corresponding part, minimal challenge until you retire at the age of 65 and go to your grave unsatisfied. Because why the fuck would the developers put any effort into the climax of their game? A few tedious minutes later, the boss is defeated. Wait, what? Didn't I kill these dipshits? And now they're having a goddamn disco dance party? I mean, I approve completely, but why? I guess it's as good a way to go out as any. Touche, TT. The playtime isn't great, with each level lasting about 20 minutes and each boss fight about 10, so an average playthrough would clock in at about 8 hours long, although I think if the game was any longer it would really outstay its welcome. There is, to be fair, a reasonable amount of replay value. You unlock each Paraka to play as by beating them, as well as Vivian by completing the game. And buying the Toa's secondary powers allows you to find more gold and silver canisters, though this isn't enough to make me want to replay anything, to be honest. I deliberated a good amount on how I want to rate the games I talk about. A numerical scale seems subjective and redundant, as does just saying whether the game is quote-unquote worth playing. What I decided on is to give a final word and let you charming fiends make up your own minds. So, my final word on Bionicle Heroes. The controls are terrible, the combat is lackluster, the enemy variety is barely there, and the bosses are a joke. And this is only barely offset by some mediocre to good aesthetic design, enjoyable music and wholesome cutscenes. I'd call it a collector's item, though I doubt even Bionicle fanatics would want to play this. Even so, I can't find it in my cold, dead, cynical heart to hate this game. It's objectively garbage. Fucking terrible. But I find it kind of endearing. Like that one angry mud at the dog pound with a leg missing. And no eyes. And rabies. And he's on fire.